20 years ago, when I was talking to executives about this brand new thing called the World Wide Web, and trying to explain to them that it was actually going to have a bigger effect on business than the invention of the PC or client-server computing, they looked at me like I had three heads. Are you crazy? One good old Southern boy raised his hands one time and said, I'm sorry, son, but this was back when people still occasionally referred to me as son. I'm sorry, son, but I don't see what this thing that college boys use for looking at dirty pictures has got to do with running my business. Well, now we have an understanding that, well, we couldn't have had the Internet and the World Wide Web without those predecessor technologies, that clearly it has dwarfed those predecessors in its impact on business and society. What's driving all of this evolution in technology? Tremendous underlying technological change. In the last 15 years, the cost of bandwidth has dropped by a factor of 50. In the last 20 years, computing cost has dropped by 3,000, and storage cost has dropped by 20,000, to the point where we now have a plug-in 4 terabyte device. Mobile computing, of course, is exploding. The very first mobile phone call ever placed was in April of 1973, 42 years ago. And in the intervening time, we've grown to the point where out of the 7 billion people in the world, 4 billion of them use mobile phones. Now let me contrast that, in terms of growth rate, with the toothbrush, which was invented in Egypt 5,000 years ago. Or so they tell me anyway. I wasn't actually there in person, even though my kids think, well, anyway. And it has grown in use and popularity to the point where now some 3.5 billion people own toothbrushes. Now, what does that tell you? Aside from the fact that the adoption rate of mobile phones is drastically higher than that of toothbrushes.
Well, the mobile phone needs to be toothbrushes.
Well, what it will tell you is that if you were to use your mobile phone and dial another mobile phone number at random anywhere in the world, the chances are 1 in 8 that the person who answers that phone does not own a toothbrush. In which case you may be glad you're speaking to them on the phone and not in person. Simon Lee and his team at the University of Warwick in the UK have already figured out how to create 3D printed electronic devices with the electronic circuitry printed into the device. So that means that as we move to the Internet of Things, we don't have to figure out how to attach communication, processing, and data storage, even in small quantities, devices on the outside of the things we're trying to keep track of. We can create those things with the electronic circuitry built right into them. One intriguing example is the bionic ear, where the outer substrate is of a material designed to allow human cells to grow on it naturally, but with a cochlear implant built directly into the bionic ear. The fifth wave of information technology. Oh yeah, there was one more thing characteristic about each wave of information technology, and that is that just at the point when everybody thinks that the latest wave of information technology is the greatest thing since sliced bread, is when they're least likely to recognize that that latest wave of information technology is not the last and final wave of information technology. There is, in fact, another wave already well underway, and that is intelligent systems. We're talking about something way beyond just big data analytics. Big data is essentially retrospective. It's looking back. We're talking about intelligent decision management technologies, continuous real-time high volume to enable existing staff to make operational decisions on an ongoing basis, but with the help of data from many sources analyzed on their behalf. Implementing intelligent decision management means automating decisions, and if you're going to get the full benefit of it, it means automating many decisions that are made by people today. that you don't need to have people making those decisions. Other than that, you don't have another mechanism for it. You've got to move beyond the traditional if-then-else computer programming logic and use more intelligent systems technologies. And what we're seeing evolving today, for example, is that information coming in through the business infrastructure is processed via big data analytics. And we're going to need that as we move to an environment of the Internet of Things, where we have hundreds or thousands of times the amount of data that we have today. Natural language processing can take unstructured data and convert it into structured form. Tools like associative memory and machine learning then can allow intelligent systems to think, decide, and act in ways highly analogous to the ways that human experts do. Intelligent agents, though, can also be used to assist and improve the performance of people. In every organization, in every field, there's typically a handful of experts where things follow the 80-20 rule. Your 20% of your best salespeople make 80% of your sales. Your 20% of your best developers get 80% of the work done. Now, it's not always going to hold hard and fast, but we're all familiar with it. Gosh, if I only had my whole team working as good as the top 20% does, man, how great we would be doing. Well, with these kinds of tools, intelligent agents can act as assistants, so they can help people who are less knowledgeable and less experienced perform at a level, if not quite as high as their much more knowledgeable and experienced counterparts, very close to it at a much higher level of performance. Furthermore, the people who are the world-class experts, that are the top performers, can be relieved of much of the routine humdrum thought and analytics that occupies too much of their time by allowing intelligent agents to assist them so that their performance is improved at the same time.